January 6, 2009, the last Woolworths shuttered for good, ending 99 years as Britain's best-loved high street store. Some blame mismanagement, but thousands of empty shops and shattered communities tell a deeper story. Was this just one company's failure, or the moment globalization stole the soul of British retail? Here is how it really happened. On a grey November morning in 1909, crowds packed Church Street in Liverpool, drawn by something entirely new. Frank Woolworth, the American merchant behind the famous five and dime stores, had crossed the Atlantic with a bold idea. Every item in his shop would cost just threepence or sixpence. British shoppers, used to haggling or guessing prices, now found each product clearly labelled and affordable. The spectacle was impossible to ignore. Two orchestras played and free teas were served in a bustling upstairs tea room. By closing time, thousands had poured through the doors, eager to fill paper bags with goods they could suddenly afford. That first day's success was not a fluke. Within 3 years, Woolworths had opened a dozen more branches, all funded by the profits from those early tills. No outside investment was needed. Each new store paid for itself. The formula was simple but powerful. Fixed low prices, a huge range of everyday essentials, and prime spots on busy high streets. By 1912, Woolworths had become a byword for value up and down the country. The chain's rapid expansion was just beginning, but the commercial spark that lit the fuse was clear from the start. Make shopping easy, cheap, and irresistible. Weekends on the high street carried a familiar rhythm. For many families, Woolworths was more than an errand, it was a weekly outing. Parents steered prams past the red storefront, children pressing faces to the glass, already plotting their raid on the pick and mix. The sweet counter was legendary, with rows of jars, scoops clattering, and the freedom to create your own mix. In towns big and small, Woolworths became a rite of passage. Teenagers in crisp uniforms learned how to work a till, sweep up wrappers, and greet neighbours by name. For many, it was their first taste of independence, a Saturday job that paid for cinema tickets or new records. At Christmas, the aisles filled with tinsel and the promise of pocket money presents. Shoppers would bump into neighbours, swap stories, and linger a little longer than planned. The store's shelves seemed to hold a bit of everything: birthday cards, school supplies, plastic buckets for the seaside, and the latest chart singles. Woolworths was woven into the background of daily life, a place where the ordinary felt special. Its doors were open to everyone, and for decades it offered a sense of belonging that went beyond what was in your shopping bag. By the late 1970s, the British High Street was no longer Woolworths' private domain. Supermarkets, once focused on groceries, began stocking toys, sweets, and household goods, the very lines Woolworths had built its name on. Tesco, Asda, and Sainsbury's rolled out ever larger stores using scale to drive prices down and lure families away from the high street. Bargain bins of chocolate and cut-price toys sat next to the weekly shop, making Woolworths' offers look less special with every passing year. Specialist chains sharpened the attack. HMV and Virgin megastores turned music shopping into an experience, while WH Smith cornered the market for books and stationery. Argos and Toys R Us offered huge ranges, deep discounts, and catalogues that made Woolworths' shelves seem cluttered and old-fashioned. Even the world of sweets, once a Woolworths signature, faced competition from supermarkets and new discount stores. Out-of-town retail parks shifted the centre of gravity. Families drove to sprawling complexes with free parking, where every need could be met under one roof. Woolworths tried to follow with its big W megastores, but these paled beside the might of Tesco Extra or Asda's supercentres. The core problem grew clearer. Woolworths was being squeezed from every side. Supermarkets won on price and convenience. Specialists won on range and expertise. The steady flow of shoppers that once filled Woolworths aisles now drifted elsewhere, leaving the chain with falling revenues and a shrinking share of the nation's weekly shop. In 2001, as the high street shifted beneath its feet, Woolworths' board made a decision that would haunt the company for years. Kingfisher, the parent group, separated Woolworths through a demerger, but not before extracting £614 million by selling 182 of its best store properties to a property fund backed by London and Regional and Goldman Sachs. The stores were immediately leased back on long, upward-only contracts. What looked like a windfall left Woolworths with a fixed rent bill it could never escape. It was locked in for decades, even as sales began to falter. The cash from the sale did not stay with Woolworths. It went to pay down Kingfisher's debt, leaving the newly independent chain with no property cushion and a heavy financial burden. Inside the boardroom, stability vanished. Over just a few years, the group cycled through a series of leaders at both group level and retail level. Trevor Bysh-Jones, the first chief executive after the demerger, was followed by Steve Johnson in 2007. Tony Page arrived to head the retail arm as the crisis deepened. Each new boss arrived with a different vision, but none could settle on a strategy that stuck. Plans bounced between modernizing stores, chasing entertainment sales, and refocusing on value. But investment was always tight and priorities kept shifting. The result was a business pulled in too many directions, with no clear answer to what Woolworths should be. In late 2007, the board took another gamble. To raise cash, they agreed to sell Entertainment UK, Woolworths' profitable wholesale arm, responsible for supplying CDS, DVDs, and games to supermarkets and other retailers, to BBC Worldwide. On paper, the deal promised relief from mounting debts, but it also meant letting go of the one part of the business still making money. As the financial crisis gathered pace, the sales stalled and the expected funds never arrived. Woolworths was left exposed, burdened by rent, stripped of assets, and with its best division effectively on the block. Meanwhile, online sales remained below 1%, a rounding error in a world moving rapidly to digital. These boardroom moves, meant to buy time, instead tightened the noose, leaving Woolworths dangerously fragile as the storm broke. On the 26th of November 2008, the board of Woolworths made a decision that could no longer be postponed. After weeks of frantic negotiations, the company filed for administration. That morning, trading in Woolworths shares was suspended. Deloitte, one of the United Kingdom's best-known insolvency firms, arrived to take control. The chain's fate now rested in the hands of outside accountants, not shop managers or head office staff. Suppliers, already wary, had insisted on cash up front for every new delivery. With Christmas looming, shelves were running thin, and the tills could not keep pace with the outflow. The banks, which had been weighing rescue proposals, withdrew their support. The formal act of entering administration ended nearly a century of trading in a single stroke. For thousands of employees, the news came with no warning. One day the store was open, the next the future was out of their hands. The collapse had moved from rumor to reality overnight. Behind each shuttered storefront, thousands of lives were thrown into turmoil. Almost 27,000 people lost their jobs as Woolworths disappeared from the high street, many with decades of service suddenly left with nothing but a final pay slip and an empty calendar. Some spent their last days on the shop floor helping regulars find closing down bargains, packing up unsold toys and Christmas decorations, knowing there would be no return after the doors closed. For towns where Woolworths had anchored the centre for generations, the loss was more than economic. Local newspapers filled with letters from customers mourning the end of a tradition, and shop managers spoke of staff in tears as they cleared out the pick and mix for the last time. Months later, the impact lingered. Across Britain, more than 1 in 10 shop units stood empty, a visible reminder of the sudden hole left in the fabric of daily life. Retail analyst Richard Hyman said, "Woolworths was the heart of the high street. When it stopped beating, something changed in every community." Today, over 1 in 10 retail units in the United Kingdom stand empty. As online giants redefine convenience, the heart of the high street grows quieter. The real loss is not just a shop, it is the threads that once held communities together. What we value now will decide what endures next.